This podcast is sponsored by
Terraform Development proudly supports the Hopi tribe and nonprofit Hopi entities to provide essential technical support in engineering, architectural, and project management services. Eddie Kalniptua can relate to the hard work on the Hopi reservation, including the cornfield duties and traditional ceremonies that he was raised on. He values this tradition, so Terraform Development was formed to meet these needs on the Hopi reservation. Contact Terraform Development at TERRA4ORM.com and follow them on Instagram at Terraform Development.
Also sponsored by
Hey, Tom here with Hopi Relief. Hopi Relief is a nonprofit organization based down here in the valley where we are providing much needed supplies to the Hopi reservation during this COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Please visit hopirelief.org and find out how you can get involved. Hopi Relief is also an Arizona recognized charitable tax organization. And please visit us December 1st on Giving Tuesday. Thank you.
You are now listening to the Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. I'm your host, the 5-star, 5-diamond chef, J-Man. And with me is the guy that likes to ask everybody if they're exploiting their culture for profit, Carl.
I am actually the godfather of all podcasting here on the reservation. My name is Carl.
That's not true because I am the godfather of Hopi podcasting, and I got a YouTube video to prove it. And we're back. We're back this week.
Just because your face is on the YouTube video doesn't mean you're a godfather. So,
you ever seen the movie Steve Jobs?
Yes, I've seen that.
You know, where the scene where they asked Steve Jobs, you know, well, what instrument do you play? What place do you have in the company? Because you're not a designer, you don't build computers, and etc.
Yeah.
And so he responded and he said, I play the orchestra. And so if you want to know what my place is around here, you do all the technical stuff, you do all the YouTube stuff. But when it comes to this little group we got here, I play the orchestra.
You're the conductor of everything.
Yes.
You can't even screw on the microphone that I give you.
And that's your job.
Well, thank you again for listening to the Carl and J-Man podcast here in beautiful downtown Kikotsmovi, Arizona.
We're here in our beautiful home of Peace Academy Studios, feeling full. We had just had a big lunch. We were just fed by L&K
Eatery's Eatery.
So we'd like to thank the guys and women over at L&K Eateries.
Yeah.
And so if you're here on the reservation and then you're feeling that hunger, that give them a call at 928-250-9591 and they'll hook you up. That pulled pork sandwich that I had was pretty good.
Yeah, they're actually on Facebook as well too. So just type in L&K's Eatery and have a good lunch with them. I love the chili cheese fries.
Have a good lunch with them. Definitely want to support our small businesses out here on Hopi. And, want to give another big shout out because I think that, things have been rolling pretty well here, that we've got a lot of support from a lot of different folks, from our sponsors, from folks that giving us appreciation for giving them shout outs through the Instagram. We did that 2 weeks in a row, supporting the small businesses and the local Hopi artists and other native artists out there. But definitely give a shout out to our 30-pack contributors, Michelle Holden, Deidre Leslie, Rachel Reinhardt, Noel Koyohoma, Joyce Hamilton, our boy Millard Kawanyama, and Gary Lomayesva.
Yeah, thank you guys for contributing to our monthly supporters. And if you guys want to become our monthly supporter, just go to anchor.fm/CJ Podcast 85 to become one of our 30-pack contributors. So thank you again, guys.
Thank you again. And I got one more shout out
All
because
right,
I
go
think
ahead.
that all the listeners out there know how big of a pro wrestling fan I am now up to this point. But you think about those earlier years, I think that a lot of my other buddies were pro wrestling fans in the earlier years, but a lot of them grew out of it. And I was like one of the very few that didn't grow out of it. But I actually have another buddy that also didn't grow out of it. And he came knocking at my door last week and he had some wrestling shirts for my son. And so I like to give a shout out to my buddy, Ryan Chaos Goen Voyama. So if you're out there, appreciate the t-shirts.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I mean, it does take courage to watch two guys rub on each other. And I got to give a shout out to my boy here, J-Man, for watching two guys rubbing on each other.
Well, if you put it that way.
Well, today's episode is going to be one of the best episodes here because it's a He-Man Woman Haters episode.
He-Man Woman Haters Club, in a way.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about man talk.
Men talk.
Talking about men's work.
Exactly.
Going outside, getting sweaty.
Washing with dirt.
Hoeing around, literally.
Yeah, exactly. You know, scrubbing your face with rocks.
And so actually today we're going to be talking about Hopi farming.
Hopi Farming.
And so this is something that I think that we've talked about to an extent on a couple of the episodes, but I definitely think that it's a topic that we could go into a deeper conversation about, especially, considering that, when you think about Hopi farming, that, I think that there's dynamics about it that makes it different than when you think about places like the Cornhusker State, the Midwest where, the commercial farming goes on. But because historically, that farming was a way of life for our people.
Yes, it was.
That it became intertwined with our heritage religion. And so, there's a perspective about farming that our people have that have been shared for generations. And it's something that we continue to practice.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially now, like with the development of technology, with the development of climate change, that, there's a huge story to be told on the contemporary side of how we farm today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I grew up with farmers. My kwa was a farmer. My tahas were farmers. Everybody in our clan are farmers. And the reason why is because we were taught at a very young age is that if you don't have a farm and you don't have corn, you're not a rich man. You're not part of that Hopi. Yeah, you're poor. So I wanted to follow into that tradition where if I do have ka and if I do have that substance there, then I become a rich man. No matter how much money I have, you're a rich man in that position there.
Mm-hmm. And so, thinking as I mentioned, that the fact that this is something that Hopis have been doing, at least in our perspective, since, a phrase that you like to say a lot, in time immemorial. And that, it was something that was given to us when we first emerged onto this earth and something that we carried with us. And so that, as a child, you hear a lot of lessons about farming. And you hear a lot of lessons and stories of how farming is intertwined with our life. And the fact that we use corn and other types of plants as metaphors for how we live our everyday lives.
Oh, yeah, we do. I mean, like corn that revolves here on the Hopi Reservation, it's the centerpiece of every Hopi ceremony here. Mm-hmm. It's one of the building blocks, the first things that will be inlaid in all ceremonies that we do. And it's because of that. That's the reason why we farm. And that's the reason why we grow so much of this richness that we have. And it is something that we keep sacred and we prize that so much.
So in a way, it's like we develop this cycle that involves corn.
Oh, yeah.
Because you think about, because we've said this a bunch of times that our ceremony or our dances, the main purpose of a lot of them is to bring the rain.
Oh, yeah.
And like you mentioned, that corn is involved in every single ceremony that we do.
Oh, yeah.
And so in a way you think about it, it's that we use the corn to make our offerings to pray for the rain. in turn, it rains. And because of the rain, we get more corn.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this secular progress that we've developed with our perspectives and even our actions and how we approach farming.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, it's like the huge circle of how Hopi life is. You know, we grow the corn from the ground up just like a baby. We take care of it. We nurture it. We make sure nothing bad happens to it. And then once they grow up, they give us children, or they give us the corn, and we take care of the corn, you know, and that cycle begins all over again.
And, you know, a lot of the lessons, especially exactly what you just said, a lot of these lessons that were taught at a very young age, that our kwa'as, our fathers, our tahas, were the main ones communicating these messages to us. And that's something that all Hopi farmers at some point in time have heard, is that you treat your uyi as if they were your own children.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that statement emphasizes how important that a person's crops are.
Yeah.
Because that if you're taking care of them in the way that you would treat your own children, and like you said, that in the same way that you develop a baby.
Yeah.
And develop that baby into childhood and then into adulthood and then into an elderly state, that it's the same concept with your plants.
Oh, yeah.
And that you develop them from seeds. And then once you put your seeds into the ground, you're also putting your faith in with those seeds, that they're going to develop and grow and then become something that's going to sustain your family.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, you know, with that, you know, you bring the songs just like singing to a child so they can be happy and they can feel joyous. And with that, you know, they grow into something bigger and to this old, you know, tall plant there. And then she gives you corn and she gives you her children for you to enjoy. And with that, then we take that in and then we create ceremonies around that.
Exactly. And this is something that we probably should have stated earlier, just so that folks don't get confused, is that uyi doesn't really refer to strippers, like we said in a previous episode. But uyi actually means plants.
Uyi means plants, yeah. So when a man says, I'm going to go water my uyi, you know.
He really means he's going to the strip club.
It's just code, okay? But, you know, it's crazy how we as Hopis believe in nurturing something that Pahanas do on like a daily basis. You know, like with huge farming, like commercial farming. Like, you know, they're vast in their farming. They have acres and acres of corn and other like plants like that to feed us. Mm-hmm, and when you look at Hopi farming, it's created from the depths of their heart, their soul, because it's something that they are creating, making magic, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. And it's so different too, the different, I guess, perspectives of like the commercialized farming.
Oh yeah,
because obviously, you know, they do it for the green, not
exactly,
for the uyi green,
yeah,
but for those Benjamins. And it's funny because then, you know, like we've talked a lot about our experiences living off the reservation, and then I think that for a lot of people that live off the reservation, they tell people that, oh, we're farmers, you know,
yeah,
we farm,
yeah.
And then oftentimes when you tell those people that your family is a farming family, that's what they automatically think. They think that you're growing your crops so that you could sell it, so that you could get paid.
Actually, that's true too. So
true these days,
yeah,
nowadays,
yeah.
But you know that, but I guess that idea of selling your uyi is kind of a concept that doesn't really fall into our perspective, because it's kind of I guess it contradicts what our beliefs are.
Oh yeah,
in regards to farming.
But if you do look at the past, like So and Kwai, when they used to farm before I was born, they used to sell their corn too. They used to say that, yeah, corn we used to sell to like other neighboring tribes maybe, and it was because they needed funds, and they had the supply that other Native Americans needed to have in their ceremonies.
Yeah, that's a Gayavuk thing. We don't sell our corn out at Minnekopi, so.
You guys just water your stuff, so. So like the whole concept of like Hopi farming. So J-Man was talking about Hopi farming. There's a wide a difference of Hopi farming. And so when you hear about Hopi farming, it's called dry farming. So dry farming is basically we wait till a certain time to start farming because of the soil that it's still gathering its nutrients, it's still gathering its the moisture that it needs to sustain itself through the months that it's going to grow. And so that's the reason why we have ceremonies. So when we do have ceremonies, it starts to rain, starts to make our plants grow a little bit more. So dry farming is that we don't water our plants. We don't do anything more to it until we have like ceremonies. And we believe that the rain gods, we have to pay the rain gods.
We got to pay the rain gods that green.
And when we do, then the rain gods will say that, hey, you guys gave me enough money.
You guys put enough cash into the ceremony. You guys made the minimum deposit.
You guys made the minimum cash deposit into the donation bowl. I'll give you some.
And I think that another thing too, that Hopi farmers are proud of the fact that, that the traditional form of Hopi farming is dry farming, that it's changed the DNA of the seeds that Hopi
Oh yeah,
out
it does.
here.
Yeah.
Because then I think that when you're a full-time farmer, that you do understand of how your seeds are built plays big into whether you're going to have a good crop or not. Because then, any farmer anywhere understands that climate is important. Any farmer anywhere understands the type of soil that you're putting your seeds into plays a part in it, and even the types of seeds that you have. And so seeds that don't require a lot of water are what is best suited for the desert climate out here on Hopi.
See, I remember one time there was a white guy that came to Hotvela, and he wanted to make a documentary about dry farming, or actually just like farming in general. And so he pulled a bunch of these older guys that were there, and they just told him that, yeah, we don't water our plants, we don't do anything, so we rely on the skies above to water our plants for us. And so the Bahana guy was so confused. It's like, you guys don't tend to your crops in like a traditional manner. Traditional meaning like, water them, make sure they grow strong. And no, we don't, because we create these ceremonies. And so he was very confused on how Hopis did that. And he was very impressed that we could grow something in such a very, very dry climate here, where actually nothing grows out here. And so that was one of the things that, and he actually called it magic. He actually called it like, this is some sort of sorcery you guys do. It's like devil, it's like witch, burn the witch. And it was strange. And it was like something so foreign to him that he just couldn't wrap his head around, that Hopis actually create magic with growing and sustaining ourselves out here.
Strong Ones. Every Strong Ones design has a story and a unique meaning. They create designs to celebrate traditions of running and uplift native cultures across the globe. They also partner with local artists on special projects in hopes to expose talent and creativity of Hopi people. Strong Ones are often referred to as Hohongvit in the Hopi language. They can be found at hohongvit.com. That's HOHONGVIT.com.
And I think that a lot of farmers out here do have pride in their fields.
Oh, yeah.
They have pride that when they're able to have a successful crop, that, for those that are out there that understand what type of work, what type of time and effort goes into sustaining a field, that it is pride.
It is.
You feel when you have a successful harvest. And it's interesting because then, I think that in this day and age, with things like, I think that a lot of native people now, we kind of, and I've been saying this before, that we all throw ourselves in the same pot, and then we kind of mix things together and have the same perspective. And I think that the perspective of Indian country is this pride in something called warriors.
Oh yeah.
This warrior society, and having warriors, and that's kind of been the pride of a lot of tribes out there in Indian country. But out here in Hopi, it's actually the pride is being a farmer.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so I've always thought that always made Hopi so distinctive from other tribes, is because that being a warrior isn't a part of our identity. It's actually being a farmer.
Oh yeah.
And so, it becomes like that Smoke Signals movie where, you want to look like you came back from harvesting corn.
But we're fishermen.
It's not called Dances with Corn, but actually that is our reality, that it is Dances with Corn out here.
Oh yeah.
And so I guess, moving the conversation forward though, because we did talk about, how our perspective is about farming and about our plants and about how it is that we believe in how we are able to make those things successful. But talk about a little bit about where those fields are and how those fields come to be.
Okay. So like most farms on the Hopi Reservation are off the mesas. They're actually maybe, I would say about 20 miles away, 10 to 20 miles away from most villages, 5, 10 to 20 miles away. And it's because traditionally men would get up super early in the morning, make sure that his donkey is ready to go and makes his way down to the fields and spends all day at the fields where tending to his crops. And so that's where traditionally men would have their fields where it's off the mesa tops.
Mm-hmm. And so the fields, I guess, for the most part, all villages kind of have the same structure in terms of who can farm where. And so farming areas that are around the villages are associated to a specific clan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We do have clan plots, and we have clan designations of where we can farm. And so if you go to certain villages here on the reservation, they'll tell you where the clan plots are, the clan fields are.
Mm-hmm. And so traditionally that's how the fields are, I guess, in a way developed based upon which clan has claims to what areas around the villages. And because our clans do have what do you call them, tiers as to based on which clan is more important and so forth. And so the more important clans get the better field areas, and then all the way down the line. And then the fact that we've mentioned this before is that our perspective is that women own.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Quote, unquote, own the land.
Actually, yeah. Women actually do own certain fields. And it's because of the clanship. That's why, most clans are through women, and they own a specific fields where their husbands or their brothers or their clan relatives would plant on that land. Mm-hmm. And it would only be on that land where most of the clanship would gather and would make a good harvest there.
Exactly. And so, in this fishbowl of the factory settings, that the idea is that, as young Hopi boys, we grow up and then we find wives. And then once we find those wives, based upon wherever their clanship holdings are, that becomes the field that you cultivate.
Oh, yeah.
And that becomes the field that you work in. And, this was something that was said by one of our special guests in a previous episode, that, in a way that you raise your boys for other families.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
Because then when you do grow up and then you do get married, that you end up working the field of your wife.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Working that field for her clan relatives.
Yep, exactly. It's not just all about 30 packs and good smoke. So you got to put in some work. You guys put in some effort into that.
Got to put in some labor. and so, we talked a little bit about our upbringings, the fact that you're from Hotvela and that I'm from Munkapi. And, what are some stories around the field areas around Hotvela?
Remember I was telling you about the story where Well, actually, you know, there was a story that was revolving that I drank all the water before noontime. And
while everybody else was working,
while everybody else was working, and I was actually bringing it back. I just kind of got
and
thirsty.
then you tripped, and that water fell into your mouth
and
somehow.
I tripped, and I sat underneath. I fell underneath a big corn plant that was shading me, and so that was my excuse. So I mean, like, I've grown up with farmers, and I've hated farming. For some reason, I just hated farming, and it's not to the fact that, because I don't like it in general. It's because that I was a kid, and kids are supposed to be playing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle dolls and watching Saturday morning cartoons, and they're not supposed to go to the field. But we're Hopis. We grew up in that way. And I envy. When I was younger, I envied Bahana kids because they got to go to the playground all the time. I got to go, roll around on the grass. They got to go eat at Baskin Robbins. They got parties on the weekends. And you know what we got? We got dirt thrown in our faces. We had to literally fight over sips of water at the field. And that was my childhood.
I highly doubt that you worked so hard as a kid, Carl.
I was a hardworking kid. I just hated working.
I've practically known you since you're 5 years old, and that's something that I have difficulties in believing. But I mean, I guess, talking about, our childhood and talking about, being part of farming families, because that really was how it was when you were growing up as a kid. Because I recall back from my childhood that, I really don't remember when my father started taking me down to the fields.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably a reality for most boys that, they were being taken down to the fields at early ages. And I think that probably was the reaction from a lot of us, is that, you'd rather be at home watching TV or playing with your toys on the weekends.
Oh, yeah.
But rather, you're being dragged against your will oftentimes down to the cornfield, and then you're having forced to work and, do all of the labor that's associated with it. Because I recall, being a young boy, but my father was, like most Hopi men, a real stern man.
Yeah.
And, didn't take shit that, if you tried to argue back, there was no concept of timeouts or, you stand in the corner until you cool off. That's something that none of us ever experienced. You talk sideways just one time and boom, you're getting hit somewhere. And so, you gotta, abide by, whatever the rules were of the males within the household. And so I remember that, he would take me down there a lot. And like that too, I didn't want to be down there. But, because I was so afraid of him that, I wouldn't dare argue back or say anything back. I would just be there with my hoe in my hand, crying as I'm chopping weeds.
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing that was, or this whole farming thing was taught by my uncles. And my uncle, man, he's still a mean guy. He's getting older up there, and he's still a mean guy, and I'm still a little scared of him. And I guess as a Hopi male, you're supposed to be respectful to your uncles, and you're supposed to be kind of scared of them because they're the ones who teach you all of these lessons here. And when I remember, I never wanted to talk back to him, and I never wanted to show him my report card. And it was through that. Because of that, I had to actually study and work because he would ask for my report card. And I would be so scared of him because he would come to the house and he would ask, Carl, where's your report card? And I was like, oh man, it didn't come today. I must have got lost in the mail. And so it comes out, it came just right now. Here's his report card. I'm like, God damn it. So all C's and D's, and I'd be so scared of him of what he's going to say and have to work extra hard at his field.
All C's and D's because you deleted all your work from your floppy disk and decided to upload photos of girls on it instead.
Priorities, man. Priorities.
But there is, there's a lot of different things that you do down at the field that, there's different chores that need to be done.
Oh, yeah.
And, not all of it is bad. Some of the stuff that you do down there is kind of fun. And so, what are some of the things that you actually did enjoy about going down to the field when you were younger?
So what we do is called tsa tsa loa, where we take out some of the corn stalks there. And what we do is that it's called thinning it out. So the reason why we thin the plant out is so that it can gain more water from just a few stalks there in order to grow a lot more bigger corn. And so I love doing that. I love taking some of that out and then, just pretending that, I'm a whipper kachina, just going and then start whipping all my brothers with the corn stalks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was the fun part about it.
Well, out in Munkapi, like you said, we are irrigators out
Yeah.
there. And so, that was always a fun thing to do was irrigating. And because then, it's something that as kids, you got to play in the water.
Yeah.
Because we will always play in the water that every time that's something that you did. And, I think that the big myth about irrigation out at Munkapi is that a lot of Hopi seem to think that it's just like a faucet spout that you can turn the water on and off as we please, but there's a list, goddammit, and then you have to wait in line before that water gets to you, but that is something that I do remember fondly as being a kid, is that you get to roll around, play in the irrigation ditches, and then as that water comes in, that you're still in the ditch while the water's coming through and then playing in it. And so that was one of the fun things that I enjoyed doing. But then, you think about some of those really difficult things that you just hated doing. And I think that always, for a lot of people that I talk to, I think it's the actual process of planting that a lot of people don't like to do.
Yeah, that is true. I just don't like hand planting.
And that's the thing, is because and that's another big contrast with traditional, or at least the way we farm out here in comparison to the commercial farmers, is that we don't have those heavy machinery that a lot of those farmers out there have. And so oftentimes that a majority of the work that's done at the field was done by hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the farming that we still do is done by hand. Like we go down to the field. We have, what are they called? Not how would you say yoktaka? Like hose? Hose.
Boats and hose.
We have yoktakas, and, we basically clean the whole area with that and make sure that everything there is ready for planting, or there, if we have plants there, it's all nice and cleaned.
No weed whackers.
No weed whacking around.
No tillers.
I don't even know what those are.
I've seen your modern day tools parked outside of your house.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't look over there.
I'll be saying the same thing to you when I see you driving your water truck down to your field this summer.
Hey, that's it's for my eyes only.
Yeah, I told you that in confidence.
I told you that in confidence, okay?
But it is, like planting by hand is such a chore, because then for the most part that a lot of the fields that people have out here, they're fairly large fields.
Yeah.
And so that when you're planting by hand, that, there's a whole process of clearing the sand out and then digging that hole, putting the seeds in, and then covering it, and that takes some time for a lot of people, that it takes sometimes even weeks just to plant a field.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember my kwa telling me is that, when he was young and with his dad, he would go out and plant, and he would do the same thing too. He would hate getting up early in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning, just to go down to the field, which is about 10 miles away from the village, on his donkey, and then going there and then working all day. He remembers his dad that does that, and he was the same way as every Hopi man here. He wouldn't let up. He wouldn't give that easy day, like like, okay, son, we're gonna have an easy day. Let's go frolic through the woods. And no, it's like, if you don't bust this whole field here, you're not going home with me.
And I think that a lot of us experience that is that, when you are down there as kids, that you're kind of just waiting, for them to tell you, okay, let's go home. And like, that's the signal that you're waiting for.
I remember my Guao was telling me that story is like, when he had the horses, there was a horse corral by their field. And at lunchtime, he would get so excited for lunch because that's when his dad would go take a nap. And he would wait for him, and it's like, they take a nap for about a good maybe 20, 30 minutes. And, Gua would say, okay, he might be asleep for a while. I can, not work for a while. And like clockwork, his dad would be up and they would be working again. And he would wait till like sundown. And he would get so tired and he was like waiting, and he would just like barely, hoe around. He would just barely do all his work. And
this is a run out the clock situation.
And just like running out the clock. And finally his dad would say, go get the horses. Oh man, he'd drop everything and he'd run towards the corral. And he's like, it's go home day.
It's funny though, because a lot of us do feel that, because I remember being young and, my dad would tell me ahead of time, let's do this part of the field. We'll do this part of the field and we'll go home. And then as we're getting closer, oh, thank God, it's almost time for us to go. And then we'd finish.
Yeah.
And then we'd start walking. And then I would always watch my dad, because then he would always veer off to a different part of the field. Then I would watch him and he would start hoeing again. I'm like, oh my God. And then he'd tell me, oh, let's finish this part. Then we'll go home. And you're like, oh my God. We were so close to going home, but now, we're having to work some more.
Yeah, exactly. And if you talk to any Hopi male that has a field out here, he'll tell you the exact same stories of what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, probably a part of the reason why we were like that as kids, and I think it probably really is just a change in how we lived our lives, because we've talked about this before that, our Quas would be at the fields all day long.
Oh, yeah.
That they wouldn't even come home, that they would take their lunches with them, they take their water with them. And it's because probably that when they were younger, that they were raised in that way.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that we depended so much more on what you produce from your field, more so back in those days. But then as the times changed, and then when we grew up, that sometimes, you would go down there in the morning and then you would work till a certain point in time. Then you'd go home. Sometimes you don't go back, but sometimes you would. But when it becomes more cooler.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And nowadays, we don't do that. We don't spend all our time down at the field. And it's because of how we modernize the whole situation of Hopi.
Yeah.
And it's because of how we think in a way where money is more important than corn. And we systemize the fact that the corn is second to us earning something that we can actually spend money with.
Yeah, because we've said that before, that your mom doesn't pack you a ear of corn to pay for your lunch at school.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. But another thing, too, that I kind of really wanted to touch upon, too, is that within our culture, that farming is one of those things that's gender specific.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's gender specific to males. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes it's mostly the men that are planting, cultivating the crops, and developing a majority of that heavy work, because I think that women do play a part within the farming cycle, but it's in minimal roles.
Oh yeah.
And so, sometimes in some villages, they have parts where there's small gardens. And in those small gardens, that's usually where the females would help out more so.
Yeah, would plant like maybe just squash, beans, chili, all of these little things that you would grow in a garden.
And so why is farming gender specific to the male within Hopi culture?
I think it's because of way that we were all raised and that we raised children in a specific way, and that we believe that farming is made for the males itself, and it's made for how we see Hopi tradition in a way where where Hopi men are the ones that portray in ceremonies are portrayed in different cultural doings here on the reservation. Mm-hmm. And it's because of that. It's because that we give the children to the women, and the women take care of that afterwards. And that, I guess that's the same concept of farming.
So in other words, we're still cavemen out here.
So pretty much, yeah.
But women do play. I guess in a way they do play a large role within the farming cycle, because essentially that when you're fortunate enough to have a successful harvest, that whether you're handing it over to your wife or your mother or your sisters, that as soon as you make that transfer of whatever it is that you grew, your nut money, that becomes the property of the female.
Yeah.
And so in turn, they become the keepers of those seeds. And so they essentially become the protectors of our seeds in the same way that they're protectors of the actual children.
Oh, yeah.
And then also too, that when it becomes close to the farming season, that they're the ones that prepare the seeds. That they're the ones that clean the seeds and get it ready so that the male in turn can put it into the ground.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're the ones who make sure that every seed in there is at perfect stand. Yeah, a good seed, throwing out all the bad seeds, and making sure that all of them are good enough to make more children and make more, yourselves rich.
So I don't know who it was that dropped the ball with you, Carl, because I think you're kind of a bad seed.
I was one of the top tier seeds there.
You're one of the seeds that floated to the top. Huh?
That floated to the top. So now, now farming here on the reservation.
Yeah, you look like a buoyant kind of guy.
So now farming here on the reservation is not about just going down to the field with your hoe and with your hoe and your jug of water. It's all about like
not 30-pack and good smokes.
It's all about being on tractors now. And there's this whole controversy of being on tractors now. So, I don't know if you own a tractor.
My dad does.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, we own a tractor, and we plant with the tractor, and we clean the field with the tractor, and we do everything.
I thought you were too good for modern technology.
I have a mic, and I create a podcast.
Like I said, when I see you driving to your field with your water truck.
I didn't pay the water gods enough. This is how I compensate. So, and nowadays, we have this whole controversy of being like traditional farmers or being modern farmers. And in that whole controversy creates it sparks up this whole part of how we as Hopi see ourselves as farmers now.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that that's true, because I think that, we as Hopis, we have so much pride in that we've maintained a lot of what used to be back then and still continuing a lot of those traditions today. But I think the fact that, we are getting more involved or learning more about certain types of technology, that you do see the types of technology find its way into the villages nowadays. Like you're saying, that it's popping up down in the fields because we have tractors.
Yeah.
There's some other type of modern day tools that you might see certain farmers using, or even the types of crops that people are planting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're nowadays, we don't just stick to just one thing now. We're planting different types of beans, different types of watermelon, squash, something that's not really associated with real traditional farming, but it is in a way, it's like modern to Hopi now.
I heard from a source that you're planting beets now. And
I'm planting asparagus.
Brussels sprouts.
I plant asparagus now. I'm an asparagus farmer. We're fishermen out here.
And so how do you think that the usage of some of these new tools like the tractors, how has that changed in comparison to what you remember from your early years as a farmer?
It actually alleviated a lot of hard work for us, or hard work for me.
Because you mentioned that, planting with a tractor, that cuts down so much time.
Oh, yeah.
It cuts down so much time. What once took days now takes a day.
Now it takes
to plant.
Yeah, it takes hours basically.
Or hours.
Yeah.
Hours. And the fact that, a lot of farmers nowadays, they do use the tractors. We use tillers.
You guys use tillers.
And so you don't have to hoe as much, hoeing around as much. There's probably some other tools too that kind of cut down the legwork of what things used to be done by hand.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of modern tools that actually help us out. And I have to thank John Deere for that. I have to thank them because, they're the ones who gave us a tractor so we can, so I cannot stay at the field all day. And so I can have my day back and go watch Saturday morning cartoons.
And then we got to thank all those country singers for anthems like She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy. And Get Up on the Hood of My Daddy's Green Tractor. And
so, I mean, it's coming to that time where we're going to be heading out here. So is there any other...
I got a question for you.
Okay.
So do you think that your conversations that you have on this podcast, do you think you're exploiting your culture and your religion?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm trying to sell Hopi and stuff like that.
No, that was a joke question. But I think that, one of the things that I definitely wanted to touch upon before we go today in regards to farming, and you and I have had this conversation to long extent, is that, as young farmers, we're still young in the eyes of a lot of Hopi people out here. But as young farmers, you always hear stories from the older people about the farming and how things were back in their day.
Oh, yeah.
And they always paint this picture of that things were so much more glorious back in the day. You always hear stories of how it rained so much more a long time ago, that you didn't have to worry about the crows so much a long time ago.
Yeah.
That it seemed that it was less of an effort to get a good harvest back in those days. But then in this day and age, I joke with you about the water truck, but that's something that's becoming a reality now, especially out here due to the climate, due to the fact that it's not raining as much, the fact that we're not getting the moisture that we used to see years ago or even decades ago, that it becomes difficult now to be a farmer. And the fact that we still have this idea of having some sort of worth when you are a good farmer, when you do produce those good harvests, when you are able to supply, whether it's your wife's family or your mother and your sisters or your wife's sisters with a good crop, that does make you feel like a successful man.
Yeah.
But due to the current conditions, that a lot of us aren't having successful crops anymore. And so the fact that it's like that now, it kind of creates this, these issues that affect your mental health.
It does.
Because then not only are you stressed out, the fact that sometimes, your crops aren't doing so well, but then also, too, you feel this level of shame to a degree.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't produce what you think that you should be producing. And so, that's something that you and I have talked about to a degree outside of the podcast. But, and that's something that it's very difficult to even, conjure how you can control the climate. But, what do you think that the farming practices are going to look like moving forward for Hopi?
I mean, in the near future, I'm seeing the Hopi farming is going to be obsolete because of the way that we're going now, at the rate that we're going now, and what the climate is becoming. I see that Hopi farming will be obsolete. Not in my time, not in your time, maybe in your kids' time, maybe not even in your kids' time, but it will be obsolete.
And that's a scary thing to think about.
Oh, yeah,
But it's something that we do think about.
And it's something
that we do worry about.
And it is a reality. It is a reality that we think about all the time. Mm-hmm. So, well, thank you again.
Well, thanks for ending the podcast on a downer. That was my fault.
Well, thank you again for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. And if you guys still want to become monthly sponsors, please go to our Anchor site, anchor.fm/CJ podcast to become a monthly sponsor. And if you want to just donate $1, just go to buymeacoffee.com/CJ podcast.
And on a happy note, our t-shirts are available for sale.
Oh, yeah. And exactly. So go to our Facebook page and find it there.
Or you can go to carlandjman.bigcartel.com.
Okay, so that's bigcartel.com.
carlandjman.bigcartel.com.
Okay. I'm not going to confuse you guys anymore. All right. Well, thank you again for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. My name is Carl.
Before we go, Carl, if you're not following us on our socials, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Carl and J-Man. And then also, too, if you're listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to smash that like button, like and subscribe. And if you're listening to us on any of the podcast servers, please give us a 5-star review, and that'll help us to get more into the mentions for people who are looking for podcasts.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, J-Man.
So long. Kwa kwa.